At Sunday dinner, my dad declared, "Your brother's the only one who works hard around here." The table clapped. I calmly said, "Then he won't need the $3,000 I cover for his rent each month." My brother choked on his drink. Mom whispered his name. And then, "My name's Cindy, I'm 27, and I've always been the one in the family who kept her head down, worked, paid her bills, and never expected much in return. No drama, no big speeches. But this story starts with one thing I did laugh at. A text from my mom. It came on a Thursday afternoon. I was halfway through a spreadsheet at work when it popped up. Sunday dinner. 6 p.m. sharp. Huge news. We're celebrating Kyle. I actually laughed out loud. Celebrate Kyle? I almost replied with, what, did he finally remember to change the batteries in the smoke detector? I didn't send that. Instead I replied, what for? Mom didn't answer. A few hours later she followed up with, your dad invited everyone. Grandma's coming. Uncle Mike. Aunt Lydia. Even Sarah and Dean are driving in. It's big. That stopped me. Everyone. For Kyle. My brother who hasn't held a real job in over a year, who forgets to reply to texts unless he needs money, who I've been quietly supporting for 9 months because apparently I'm the only one who gets it? That Kyle. I didn't believe it. I was curious. And if my dad had orchestrated this whole production, I wanted to know what he considered huge. So I showed up. Sunday came and the house looked like a Hallmark card. Streamers, extra chairs around the table, one of those store-bought cakes with generic frosting that read congratulations in uneven red letters. I walked in and immediately caught the scent of Mom's baked ziti, which only comes out during holidays or when someone wins a custody battle. I asked her, what are we celebrating? She smiled and said, just wait until everyone's seated. That didn't feel normal. My family doesn't do suspense. We do leftovers, paper plates, and side comments. The table was full. People were laughing, sipping wine, complimenting Mom's cooking. Kyle showed up 15 minutes late, of course. Aviators on his head, holding his phone like he was waiting for an important call. He kissed Grandma on the cheek, called my aunt darling, and did the whole I'm so busy act he puts on when he wants attention. Then my dad stood up. Glass in hand, big smile on his face. The room quieted. To Kyle, he said. The first one in the family to buy a car off the lot. A 2020 BMW full package. Paid for by his own hard work. The room erupted. Grandma clapped. Rachel gasped. Dean did that obnoxious whistle he does when someone gets a promotion. I sat there blinking. The car. That's the huge news? Kyle pulled out his phone and started showing pictures. Shiny silver leather interior, dealership sign in the background. I asked, how do you pay for that? He shrugged. I've been grinding. Saving. Finally making some moves. I tilted my head. What moves? He dodged the question. And then my dad looked at me smiling and said the one sentence that hit like a punch to the face. Your brother's the only one who works hard around here. Laughter. Applause. I didn't even blink. I just said, then he won't need the $3,000 I cover for his rent each month. Silence. Kyle choked. Literally choked on his wine. Mom whispered his name. Then came the questions. First from my cousin Sarah. Wait? You pay his rent? And then from Uncle Mike. $3,000 a month? You serious? I didn't say another word. I just watched my brother's face drop. He tried to laugh it off but nobody laughed with him. And that's when it all started unraveling. No one moved for a few seconds after I said it. You could almost hear the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Kyle froze, staring down at his plate, pretending he didn't hear me. The laughter that had filled the room seconds before was gone. Just gone. Everyone's faces shifted at once, like they were trying to figure out if I was joking. Mom was the first to speak. Cindy, what do you mean you cover his rent? Kept my voice even. For the past 9 months, I've been paying $3,000 every month so he wouldn't get evicted. It was like I dropped a bomb on the table. Kyle immediately tried to recover. It's not like that. She helped me out once or twice, but I'm paying her back. I didn't even need to respond. Aunt Lydia turned toward him, eyebrows raised. $3,000 a month isn't once or twice. My uncle put down his fork. Wait. You're telling me you're living off your sister and buying a BMW? Kyle pushed back his chair a little like he was ready to argue. I had savings, okay? I've been working on projects. Things are picking up. You guys just don't understand how business works now. That's when my dad jumped in, clearly irritated. Enough. Kyle's doing something with his life. He's building connections, working hard, and not everyone gets that kind of hustle. He's young, he's ambitious. Let him enjoy his success. I looked at him and I could feel my jaw tighten. You call that success? Dad's tone sharpened. You don't know how to support your family. You're always so negative. Before I could answer, Mom cut in. What savings, Kyle? He hesitated. You could see it. That small flicker of panic before he spoke. I had a little left from my freelance stuff and I took out a small loan. It's manageable. Mom blinked. You took out a loan for a car? The entire room went quiet again. Grandma, who hadn't said a word all evening, finally spoke. You bought a car with borrowed money? Kyle tried to brush it off. It's not a big deal. Everyone does it. You have to look successful to be successful. That was when Rachel, my cousin, leaned forward. So you're in debt for a car you can't afford while Cindy's been paying your rent? Kyle turned red. I said I'll pay her back. Aunt Lydia said quietly, when? With what? He didn't answer. Dad sighed and rubbed his forehead. You're all missing the point. He's out there taking risks, not playing it safe like some people. He's got vision. I didn't even respond. It was Mom who did. Vision doesn't pay bills, Mark. Her tone was flat. That alone made the whole table go still. Then she turned to Kyle again. Do you even know how much you owe her now? He looked down. I've kept track. I said, that's interesting because I have too. He didn't look up. Sarah, my other cousin, suddenly remembered something. Didn't I offer you a job at my company a few months ago? You said you were too busy with clients. Guess those clients were imaginary. Uncle Mike nodded. Yeah, and I remember lending him $500 last year. Never saw that again. It started spreading around the table, one voice after another. Everyone had a story. Little moments that, put together, painted a very different picture of my brother. The one my dad refused to see. Kyle just sat there, his face pale, his hand gripping his glass like it was an anchor. Mom finally stood up and walked out of the room without a word. The sound of her footsteps upstairs was louder than anything else. Dad looked furious, mostly at me. You didn't need to humiliate him like that in front of everyone. I met his eyes. I didn't plan to, but I'm tired of pretending. No one spoke after that. Not even Grandma. Kyle mumbled something about not needing to sit here and get attacked, grabbed his jacket and left. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the whole house. Dad followed him out a few minutes later. Mom didn't come back down. I stayed behind to help clear the table. My aunt and cousins helped quietly, no one really saying much. When the last dish was in the sink, Mom finally came down, her eyes red. She asked me softly, why didn't you tell us? I said, because I thought if I gave him time he'd learn. I didn't want to embarrass him. She nodded like she understood, but she didn't say anything else. I left not long after. When I walked out, the house that had felt so warm an hour ago suddenly looked empty, even with all the lights on. That night, Kyle didn't call. Not that I expected him to, but I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Kyle didn't call the next day, or the next 5. I wasn't surprised. That's how he operates. He vanishes when things get uncomfortable like it's a magic trick. Leave, ignore, wait for the mess to blow over, then reappear when he thinks people have cooled off enough to forget. That used to work, but this time? No one forgot. I didn't hear from Dad either. Just silence. Then 3 weeks later I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was soft. Not angry, not dramatic, just flat. Like she didn't have the energy to sugarcoat anything. Call me when you have a second. Kyle needs help. At first I rolled my eyes. I figured maybe the dealership wanted their car back or he got a flat tire and didn't know how to fix it. That would be very on brand for him. But when I finally called her back later that night, her tone told me this was different. She didn't even say hello. She just said, he's drowning, Cindy. It all came out at once. The loan he took for the BMW wasn't small. Not even close. $19,000, not including interest. He'd missed his first 2 payments. And the dealership had started calling, every day. He was dodging them. The car insurance lapsed. He owed 2 months of back rent and the landlord wasn't budging this time. Worse, the last 2 months of rent that I thought I covered he never sent in full. He used part of it as a down payment for the car and figured he could catch up later. So now he was $3,000 behind on rent, deep in debt, the car was at risk of repossession and he had nothing. No savings. No clients. Just excuses that weren't landing anymore. When I asked Mom what Dad thought, she hesitated. Then said, he still thinks Kyle will turn it around. He said it's just a rough patch. I had to laugh. A rough patch. This wasn't a bump in the road. This was a canyon. I told her straight up, I wasn't sending another dollar. She didn't argue. For the first time she didn't defend him. She just said, then he needs to figure it out. 2 nights later I heard a knock on my apartment door. It was late. I looked through the peephole and there he was. Kyle. Hoodie, no jacket, bags under his eyes. I hadn't seen him look like that since college finals week when he tried to pull 3 all-nighters in a row and ended up throwing up in a trash can. He didn't say anything when I opened the door. Just stood there holding his phone and looking lost. I didn't slam the door in his face. I let him in. We sat in my kitchen, and for the first time in years he didn't try to impress me. No sales pitch, no buzzwords. He just said, "I screwed everything up. I don't even know how to fix it." I opened my laptop. I didn't yell. I didn't make a speech. I showed him numbers. Loan payments. Insurance estimates. Rent. Car maintenance. Gas. Food. Cell phone bill. He sat there like someone had hit him with a sledgehammer. Then I told him the only way forward was to work. 3 jobs minimum. 1 wouldn't cut it. He needed to bleed for it because that's what happens when you burn through safety nets. He nodded. Didn't even argue. The next morning I called Sarah, who'd offered him a warehouse job months ago. She was hesitant but agreed to give him one more chance. Then I called a friend who needed a dishwasher for her restaurant. He started both jobs within the week. A few days later he picked up a third, stocking overnight shifts at a grocery store. It was brutal. He texted me one night at 3 a.m. from the store loading dock. Just a photo of his shoes soaked from slush and a one-line message. "I can't feel my feet." I didn't respond with sympathy. I just wrote back, "Keep going." Meanwhile, Dad called me. Twice. I didn't answer the first time. When I finally did, he told me I was being too hard on him. That Kyle wasn't built for this kind of labor. That he had a brain for business, not box lifting. I told him, then maybe he should have bought a whiteboard, not a BMW. He hung up on me. But I knew I was right. For the first time, Kyle was seeing the cost of his choices with no one there to catch him. And slowly I saw him shift. He started packing his own lunches. Woke up without me texting him. Stopped posting selfies in front of luxury cars that didn't belong to him. He even started keeping a little notebook where he tracked every dollar he spent. He wasn't perfect. He was exhausted, stressed, and on edge. But for the first time I didn't see a boy playing adult. I saw a man trying, really trying, to crawl out of his own mess. It was around week 6 of Kyle working all 3 jobs when I started to think something was off. The first sign was the silence. No texts, no sarcastic memes, no late-night complaints about his manager or how much his feet hurt. Just nothing. I gave it 2 days. On the 3rd I called. No answer. 4th day I texted him, "You alive?" No reply. I figured he was either burned out or hiding something. I wasn't expecting the call that came the next morning. It was Mom. Her voice was shaking. "He collapsed at work last night." I froze. Apparently, it happened during his overnight stocking shift. He was lifting a box, sat down for a second and just didn't get up. His manager said he looked pale all week, wasn't eating, kept pushing himself. He got taken to urgent care. Nothing life-threatening, but the doctor said his blood pressure was low, he was dehydrated, borderline anemic. The guy had been surviving on black coffee and peanut butter crackers. I drove over to see him. When I walked into that bland little room and saw him lying there with an IV in his arm, he looked more like a ghost than my brother. He gave me a weak smile. "Didn't want to call you. Figured you'd say I told you so." I didn't. I just handed him a protein bar from my bag and told him to shut up and eat. That night, Mom called everyone together. She said we needed to talk about Kyle. And by everyone I mean everyone. Dad, Aunt Lydia, Grandma, both cousins, even Uncle Mike, who usually only shows up for football or free food. When we sat down in the living room, Dad took the lead like always. He went off about how Kyle had proven himself, and maybe now it was time to support him again. Help him out. Refinance the loan. Get him into a studio apartment. He's shown grit, Dad said. We need to build him back up now. I kept quiet. So did Kyle. Then Dad dropped his brilliant plan. I was thinking we help him with a down payment on a more practical car, and I've got a guy who can help roll the remaining loan into a personal line of credit under the family name, low interest, long term. That's when Kyle finally spoke. I already sold the BMW. The room froze. You could have heard a fork drop in the kitchen. Aunt Lydia turned to him. What do you mean you sold it? He looked down at his hands. Last week. Drove it to a lot, signed it over. They gave me just enough to wipe out most of the loan. I owe around $4,000 still. I'll pay that off this year. Mom looked like she couldn't decide whether to be proud or furious. He kept going. I bought a used Corolla. It's ugly but it works. And no loan. I'm done pretending. Then he turned to me. I made a list of everything I owe you. I'm gonna pay you back. All of it. Even if it takes a year. I'm not taking another dime from this family. You could feel the air shift in the room. Even Dad didn't have anything to say for a minute. Then he muttered, You didn't have to do all that. We would have helped you. Kyle shook his head. That's the problem. You always did. It was the first time I'd ever seen him say something that might actually hurt Dad. But he didn't flinch. He meant it. That night as we were walking to our cars, I stopped him in the driveway. You really sold it? I asked. He nodded. Drove it off the lot like a king, sold it back like a man who finally got humbled. I didn't say anything. I just watched him walk toward an old, dented Corolla parked 2 houses down. A week later, I checked my bank account and saw a $2,000 deposit. The note just said, "First repayment. More coming." I stared at that notification longer than I care to admit. It wasn't just the money. It was the fact that, for the first time ever, he wasn't asking for something. He was giving something back. He was changing. And the wildest part? I was starting to believe it might actually stick. The thing about people changing is, you don't really believe it until they stop telling you they've changed. It had been about a month since Kyle collapsed at work. He was still doing all 3 jobs, rotating shifts, barely sleeping, commuting in that clunky old Corolla he bought with the last bit of money he got for the BMW. I kept expecting him to crash again or slip up or make some dramatic exit from responsibility like he always used to. But he didn't. Instead, something else happened. Something completely unexpected. He created a group chat. I saw the notification pop up during a meeting at work. New group, family, for real this time. Everyone was in it. Me, Mom, Dad, Aunt Lydia, Grandma, Sarah, Dean, and even Uncle Mike, who once accidentally ordered 5 inflatable kayaks online because he didn't know how to close his browser. The first message was from Kyle. No gifs. No memes. Just a photo. It was a spreadsheet. A real one. Simple, color-coded, neat. A full breakdown of his income, expenses, loan payments, rent, food, gas. Everything. Then he followed up with, "Been tracking every cent for 7 weeks. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning." Before anyone could even react, he sent another message. "Just signed up for a financial literacy workshop this weekend. No, I'm not being held at gunpoint. Anyone else want in?" I read that twice. This was the same brother who used to Venmo me $7 with the caption "rentish" and blow the rest of his paycheck on sneakers or vape cartridges. And now he was inviting us to a budgeting workshop. Aunt Lydia replied first. "I'm in. Been meaning to learn that stuff anyway." Then Mom. "Proud of you, honey. That's huge." Even Grandma tried. She sent a voice note by accident, which turned out to be her humming along to Wheel of Fortune. We all ignored it. Dad didn't respond right away. He probably didn't know what to say. But something shifted that week. At the next Sunday dinner, this one quieter, no balloons or ridiculous speeches, Kyle showed up early. He brought groceries. Not flowers, not takeout. Groceries. Like actual stuff for the meal. He helped Mom in the kitchen. Washed dishes without being asked. Cleaned up his own mess. Didn't sit with his feet on the coffee table or disappear to scroll on his phone like he usually did. And after dinner he pulled me aside. He handed me a small envelope. Said, "No speech. Just open it when you're home." Inside were 10 $100 bills and a handwritten note that said, "1 month's rent. Real this time. No interest. Just gratitude. More coming." I sat with that for a long time. It wasn't the money. It was the fact that he was keeping track. Remembering. Following through. But the moment that hit me most wasn't mine. It was Mom's. She called me a few days later and said, "You know what he's been doing on Thursdays?" I had no idea. Turns out Kyle had been going to Grandma's every Thursday night after work. Not for food. Not for help. He was setting up her online banking. Rewriting her passwords on sticky notes. Showing her how to avoid scam emails. Replacing light bulbs. Ordering her prescriptions. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't post about it. He didn't bring it up in the group chat. He was just doing it. Then came the biggest surprise of all. One afternoon, out of nowhere, Dad called me. I almost didn't pick up. But I did. He said, "I've been watching him. And I've been thinking about what you said. About accountability." There was a pause. "You were right. I should have seen it sooner. He needed consequences. You gave him that." That wasn't a full apology. But coming from my father, it was practically a confession. And then he said, "I'm proud of you too." Not just him. I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there stunned. It wasn't just Kyle who was changing. The whole dynamic in our family was shifting. For the first time, I didn't feel like the one who was always holding the pieces together in silence. People were noticing. And more importantly, Kyle wasn't just trying anymore. He was doing it. It happened on a quiet Tuesday morning. No big announcements, no dramatic build-up. Just a ping from my banking app and a message from Kyle. 14K. Paid in full. Thank you for everything. And for never giving up on me even when you probably should have. I read it twice. Then a third time. $14,000. Every cent I'd ever sent him returned. It didn't feel like a win. Not exactly. It felt like closure. Like the chapter was over. That night he called. Didn't even ask how I was. Just said, "Don't make plans this Saturday. And don't overdress." I asked, "What are we doing?" He just said, it's time I showed you something. Saturday rolled around. He showed up right on time wearing a button-up shirt I'd never seen before, probably thrifted but ironed. His hair looked freshly cut, beard trimmed down, and for once his car didn't smell like takeout and regret. We drove for about 25 minutes in near silence until we pulled into a strip mall on the edge of town. The kind of place I hadn't been to since I was in high school. Nail salon, vape shop, a closed-down video rental with sun-faded posters still taped to the windows. He parked in front of one of the empty-looking units. The sign above had new lettering, but the paper was still covering the inside windows. Read, KJ Creative, Design, Print and Strategy. I blinked. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a certificate. Certificate of Completion, Financial Literacy and Small Business Fundamentals. He waited for me to finish reading. Then he handed me a key. I signed the lease last week. It's not much, but it's mine. We walked inside. The space smelled like fresh paint and sawdust. It had one desk, a second-hand MacBook, a bulky printer, some shelves, and a whiteboard already filled with ideas and doodles. There were stacks of business cards, mock-ups for local diners, a half-finished logo for a dog grooming startup, and a wall calendar marked with deadlines. I turned around and just stared at him. I've been building this since January. Quietly. No one knew except Sarah. She helped me get the paperwork right. I wanted to wait until it was real before I told anyone. Then he said, "You gave me the fall I needed. But you also gave me the plan. The bar. The structure. No one ever did that for me before. I didn't even know I needed it." He pulled out another envelope. Smaller, unsealed. Inside was a check for $1,200. "For Mom," he said. "She helped with groceries and bills when I first got the apartment." I didn't forget. I didn't ask where the money came from. He didn't look rich. His shoes were still scuffed, his jeans had a tear at the knee. But he looked stable. Like someone who knew exactly how much was in his account and what it needed to cover. As we walked out, he locked the door and said, "I thought success meant looking like you had it all. Turns out it's just knowing how to keep what you have and build from it." And then, almost as an afterthought, he said something that stuck with me. "I'm not scared of work anymore. I'm scared of wasting time." That hit harder than anything. Sunday dinner that week was different. No announcements. No drama. Kyle showed up early again, helped set the table, and stayed late to do the dishes. Then, as everyone started drifting toward the living room, he stood up. No glass in hand. No dramatic tapping of silverware. He just looked around and said, "I want to thank my sister. For not protecting me when I didn't deserve it. For not saving me when I needed to fall. That's what changed me. She didn't bail me out. She backed off just enough for me to find the bottom and then climb out." The room was dead quiet. Even Dad didn't interrupt. Then Kyle looked at him and said, "You called me the only one in the family who worked hard. You were wrong. It was her the whole time." It wasn't just the words. It was the fact that he said them in front of everyone. Dad stood up, gave me this long look and nodded. No speech. No sarcasm. Just, finally, recognition. That night, Kyle walked me to my car and said, "I'm building something real now. And when I hire my first full-time employee, I want you to help me interview them. Because you're the reason I even get that chance." I drove home in silence, thinking about how far we'd come. Not just him, but all of us. Kyle changed. Truly changed. Not because someone handed him a better life, but because no one did. Me. I finally saw that stepping back wasn't giving up. Sometimes it's the only way people grow. And damn, he grew.